right, it is 22.2 biology, the designs of cells here, and as you can see, you've got like basically watching the YouTube video because you don't have as much on Friday, but you could do it on Thursday and Friday. You're going to see a YouTube video here on the cell membrane. We'll see how long it goes. I may make it into one part. I may make it into two parts. But look on page 455, and you'll see how it's broken down this cell membrane. And I also, let me fix that. That'll drive you crazy, right? OCD girls, and a couple of you boys. And so anyway, going back to the cell membrane. I also put on your Microsoft Teams, I put some breaking down of the cell membrane there as well. So notice you've got all kinds of little pumps, zips, fibers that are in there. A lipid, you know, that means a fat layer. Gates, that means it's going to let things in and out there. And then it even breaks down the molecules even into something just to where you can kind of see there, little tags for molecules, all of that. So anyways, God designed the cell to be composed primarily of four main elements. This is really important that you memorize these four main elements. Oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen. So I'm sure you can come up with something like COHN, cone, or something. I don't know. However you want to come up with it to help you kind of get those in and memorize them. But those four things are what our bodies and our cells are mainly composed of. Carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen. By mass, about 70% of the cell is water. That's one of the reasons we have to have so much water, is to keep that. Let me put this here so you can see me better. And then, of course, that's a compound of oxygen and hydrogen, H2O, right? So about 70% of that in that. And then you've got the major other substances in the cell, carbohydrates, which would be sugars, lipids, fatty acids, cholesterol, that kind of thing. Nucleic acids, you'll hear that word, think of deoxyribonucleic acid or ribonucleic acid. And then proteins. And all of those are things that are constantly in our cell. So basically, we have three major parts, all right? So that would be the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, and the nucleus. And if we could just break it down into those three, it'd be so simple, right? But no, we're going to break it down even farther than you've ever broken it down. But the cell membrane, of course, is going to be that major boundary. And even in a plant cell, you have a cell membrane and a cell wall, both, which we'll talk about another time. But then you've got cytoplasm. That's just like the thick fluid medium for everything to be put into the cell in, so it doesn't just all fall into big blob at the bottom. And then the nucleus, that is going to be the control center, the master control center of the cell. So let's look at the cell membrane, and it's also known as a plasma membrane. And human and animal cells are separated from the outside of their environment by this cell membrane. And it's a really important part of the cell. It controls what comes into the cell, what leaves the cell, and that's, of course, important. It's regulating constantly what's in and out of that cell. A cell membrane is made up of what they call phospholipids, and of course, when you hear the word lipid, you know that's a fat and of some sort. And this is basically a small amount of cholesterol added to maintain like the flexibility. This is going to keep it nice and flexible. And it's a two-layered structure. You can see that at the bottom of port 455. There's little balls, and it looks like a zipper, and then again, and so those are like the two layers there. And you can see the phospholipid molecule all the way over to the right. And this is kind of how each one of those little orbs are there. Each one of those are one of those phospholipid molecules. Let's see here. It has a membrane skeleton there. It kind of helps it to be a little bit, it's flexible, but it's still rigid there. And then it's a semi-permeable membrane. So then it controls and it allows certain things to enter, certain things to escape there. There's little ion pumps. Those are little membrane proteins that allow the cell wall to pump atoms like sodium, potassium, calcium, hydrogen, things like that in and out, little portals, if you will. Look on page 456. You'll see when you're talking about the cell membrane in plants, you also have a cell wall. You can see the electron microscope photo of the cell wall, and each one of those things are made of lignin, and that allows it to have lots of support, more rigidity than what we would have to have, and so that water kind of fills those up and allows the plant to stand up on its own. So that would be considered basically the cell membrane of it all. So basically, I'm thinking, let's see here. That's Wednesday and Thursday. I'm going to go ahead and do inside of the cell on another video here. So you can kind of look at those, the cell membrane. If you want to look up other videos on the cell membrane, that would be great as well. And just realize that the design, the complexity, and that kind of thing in the cell. Have a great day.